A weekend full of draws, but some huge wins for some of the teams in and around the top six. So let's round up round 16 of the Championship. Starting on Friday night down at Home Park, you've got Plymouth 2, Watford 2. In dramatic circumstances here, I fancied Plymouth to get something from this game. I actually had them to win 2-1 because, as I said, something happens at Home Park under the lights. It's a tough place to go. I thought that would be the case for Watford, but they almost come out victors, but it was for a brilliant 96th minute screamer from Andre Gray to steal the point at the death. It was a great brace from Andre Gray, really rolling back the years, backing up his brilliant volley in the first half as well. But I think Watford will be kicking themselves that they didn't come away with the victory here. Bayo had a fantastic chance that was saved at 2-1, and on most other days you would say Watford would come away with the result, but unlike at home where they just keep finding a way, the away form is just the opposite, and that's why I continue to have reservations around Watford. They just can't get the results that they should be on the road, and I just think that will hold them back ever so slightly. So a disappointing one for them. It probably feels like a bit of a defeat in all honesty, but Plymouth probably take this. I think you always come off the back of a late equaliser or a late winner feeling a lot more than what you would had the roles been reversed, but I still would like to see more from Plymouth in terms of their home form, because their away form is pretty much a lost cause at this point, so they need to be winning a lot of their home games. So I guess they're a point better off than what they should have been, but still, Watford were what looks like the slightly better side here, and I think Plymouth will snatch a hand off for a point, although they still probably need more. Bristol City 0, Burnley 1. A very vintage Burnley victory, this one. It is what Burnley do, isn't it, under Scott Parker? They're not very great on the eye. They're not the most free-flowing goal-scoring team in the league, but what you've got to say is if you're a team who don't concede many, then you only need one goal to win a game, and Burnley are proving that to be their formula, and it's an effective one. Once again, now I still think they were the better side here looking at the chances. They limited Bristol City to 2 shots on target and only 7 shots on goal. They themselves didn't have all that many going the other way, but as I say, they only need one to go in, and their defensive numbers are quite honestly ridiculous at the moment. They've only conceded 2 goals in the last 10 games, Burnley, so it's ridiculously hard to beat them when they're giving up so little defensively. It really is commendable, for all that I still think attacking-wise they're not quite a top 2 side. Defensively they absolutely are, so for Burnley it's a case of whether they can get that balance right, and I just don't think Scott Parker's the sort of manager who's going to get them scoring free-flowingly, but you know what, we'll see how they go and if they can tip the balance, but so far, defensively, absolutely unbelievable. What I will say though, I think they got a little bit lucky. It looked like there may have potentially been a handball might have been the second half in Bristol City's favour. Brownhill did look like his hand was in a slightly unnatural position as the ball bounced up, and it could have been a penalty. Things could have gone the other way, but still, it's a fantastic win for Burnley. One of only a few teams to win in and around that top 7, top 8 area, so it's a absolutely priceless win for them. Bristol City, back-to-back home defeats, but they have been to Sheffield United and to Burnley, so I don't think they can get too disheartened by them. Coventry 2, Sheffield United 2. Well, this is a brilliant point for Coventry, you'd have to say. I went with a 2-1 win for Sheffield United, and it maybe could have been that if they hadn't got a man sent off. And, well, it's safe to say Bissett had Ahmed Hodic on toast, really. He absolutely rinsed and shithoused that red card. I mean, fair play. It was a silly red card, first and foremost. He sort of taps the defender on the back of the neck. He shouldn't react in the way he does. He raises his hand to his throat, and although I think Bissett baited him in and certainly made a meal of it when he fell down onto his back, what Ahmed Hodic did was certainly a stupid reaction and a red card, and one that Sheffield United and their brilliant defence probably can't really do with at the moment. And then the way he winked at him afterwards, it was pure shithousery, and that probably played a part in getting Coventry the point in the end, because at that point they were 2-1 down. It looked like Sheffield United, and we know how good they are at game management, would have probably saw it out, but naturally with Coventry being a man up, eventually they were able to make the pressure count and they got themselves a equaliser. And although they're winless in 3, Coventry, they've had 2 big points against Sunderland and Sheffield United, which I don't think can be understated, both from losing positions. So even with the situation Coventry are in, they're still showing fantastic character to come back and get points against these really good teams, although they still aren't in a fantastic area in the league table. Sheffield United's 4-game winning run is over, but they still got a point despite being down to 10 men for over half the game at a place like the CBS. Not easy. So I think both teams retrospectively can take positives from this. Coventry will be glad they got back into it. Arguably, maybe should have had more looking at the stats. Sheffield United going away at the CBS. It's always going to be a good point. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Cardiff 1. Not much to say about this one. It looked like Sheffield Wednesday had the better of it in terms of the number of chances, the quality of chances, but Cardiff had more shots on target. So I think overall both these teams kind of cancelled each other out, and I'm not surprised to see this game finish the way it did. To be honest with you, I think both these teams are going to be very, very close to one another come the end of the season. Sheffield Wednesday, very inconsistent side. Cardiff are levelling out after the sort of new manager bounce under Omar Rizza, still yet to make a decision down there at Cardiff City Stadium. They certainly are taking their time, aren't they? But yeah, these are two teams who I think they're not going to be good enough to get anywhere near the top 6. They're not going to be poor enough to go down, in my opinion. They'll be mid-table, both of them very up and down, very mediocre. This result does not surprise me. Luton 1, Hull 0. Luton come out on top of El Sakiko with, of course, two managers who are under big pressure, and Luton were the ones who come out on top from a set piece. McGuinness heading away in the 33rd minute. But I tell you what, Hull City, looking at the stats, are going to be wondering how they didn't come away with anything from this game. They had by far the more possession. They created the better chances. They had more shots, but only 2 of them were on target. And I think that's maybe why the quality of the Hull attackers are maybe slightly letting them down. It's one of them games where you come out on the wrong side of it, it could really be costly for you. And Luton will take the victory, of course, but it is a concern still. They're not looking all that convincing. Only 2 shots on target in this game for Luton Town, but I think in their predicament, it's all about getting 3 points. It's all about just getting the victory, especially in front of their home fans. I think that's massively important, and a clean sheet as well after shipping 5 to Boro is massive for Luton. So I think for them, they'll just look at this and go, you know what, who cares about stats and numbers? We got the win, we got the clean sheet by hook or by crook, and it means Rob Edwards will live to fight another day. Am I convinced that things are going to turn around for Luton now? No, not at all. We've seen them win the odd game here, there and everywhere, and their form's been incredibly up and down, but they've not been able to string a good run of results together at all at any point this season, really. So I need to see a lot more from Luton, really, to be convinced that their season's gotten up and running. As for Hull City, well, they come away without scoring. Only 2 shots on target themselves for 14 on goal. Should have maybe had more, but that sums them up at the moment, and they now drop into the bottom 3 as the pressure, I'm sure, will continue to pile on Tim Volter. Millwall 1, Sunderland 1. What limbs at the end of this game for Millwall. I mean, yeah, what a brilliant response. A fantastic second half response, you'd have to say, by Millwall. And on the balance of play, you could say they got what they deserved in the end. We know how much of a tough nut to crack Sunderland's defence are, so it's big for Millwall to get this goal late on, and it was a fantastic winner at the end, and it keeps Millwall's decent run of form going. I know their winning run is over and has been for 2 games now, but they've picked up 2 draws, 6 unbeaten I think that is, and they've took points off of Leeds, Burnley and now Sunderland. So still big positives to take away from Millwall, and a much better second half from the first. As for Sunderland, I mean, I stand by what I say. They're still not losing games, which is still a positive, and they're still coming away from some really tough places against some really tough teams. Again, with something to show from it, which is a big positive. But again, if you flip the coin, it's another game where they've been able to, unable to convert 3 points from a winning position, and they've now drawn 4 in a row, scoring only 3 in that time. The 2 came, of course, at home to Coventry. This was only the single goal away to Millwall. So Sunderland's flatline continues. We all saw it coming. I've mentioned, there would naturally come a point where the wins stopped coming and they dropped off and started dropping points, but they're not losing games, which I think is still a massive positive for them to hold on to, albeit they're not converting victories like they were early in the season, and there are a lot of teams in and around them that are motoring and are starting to catch up. And talking of teams catching up, Oxford 2, Boro 6, another devastating performance by Boro 1, which of course, as I always do, I have reviewed on the channel in my Project Boro series if you want to hear my thoughts in more detail on that. But Boro are on fire right now. 3 wins in a row, 15 goals scored in that time. I have never personally in my life seen a Boro team score goals like this before. And I still think there's a degree, of silly goals that we're still conceding at times. But all season long, we've said, and the data's backed up, that this Boro team score enough goals to win most games. And that was what was letting us down the biggest at times earlier in the season. But now that the goals are flying in, we're starting to see the result of that. And it's a case of teams just not being able to live with us. And albeit, you might say, well, it's Oxford. Well, Oxford, prior to this game, had only lost once at home all season and had only conceded 5 goals all season. So for Boro to rock up and double that tally is absolutely amazing. So Boro have clicked and are on real momentum. And the big thing was picking up the momentum from before the international break and ensuring that it wasn't a disruption, and it's proven that it really isn't. Finn Azar's Latilath absolutely killing it at the moment. So Boro are on fire and have arguably caught fire at the right time with games coming thick and fast. For Oxford, I still thought they were decent at times. Boro were ripping them open, and listen, you're coming up against a team that are just scoring goals left, right and centre, but they still posed a threat at times going the other way, and I think they'll just take this as one of them games where you hold your hands up and just say, a team's just come here and been mesmerising. This fixture's not going to define their season. This isn't a result that's going to define their season. It's all about how well they, for them, hopefully, bounce back from it. Preston 1, Derby 1. Predicted this one bang on the money. Again, as I said, 2 teams who, a bit like Sheffield Wednesday and Cardiff, are probably going to be in and around each other come the end of the season. You've got Preston, who are better at home and have done okay at Deepdale, but have started to simmer after their new manager bounce, you could say, and Derby, who are a team that just find a way to pick up points away from home and are pretty strong at home. And this was vintage Derby County. This is exactly what I predicted it would be. I predicted 1-1, and I also predicted it would be the sort of game that it was, and that was that Derby would score from a set piece with their one and only shot on target. Lo and behold, they scored from a set piece with their only a shot on target. So, yeah, I sort of know Derby inside and out, and this is exactly what you get from them away from home. But fair enough, they're incredibly clinical on the road, and it's picking them up points. I wouldn't say it's picking them up wins, but it's picking them up enough points to just keep them ticking over. And if Derby keep picking up points on the road at places that can be incredibly awkward, but keep winning on the at home or winning the majority of their games at home, they're going to stay up without an issue. So yeah, this is all Derby need to do, and they're doing the job that's required from them in their current position. Preston, though, will probably looked at this as a game in their predicament which they should be winning. They'd have probably looked at a home game against Derby and thought, yeah, if we're going to struggle in other places this season, we're not in great form, we're winless in quite a few games now, this is the one to target as one that we need to win. But they failed to win it, and that is a massive disappointment for them, conceding only 6 minutes after they scored. So definitely a better point for Derby, who are into the top half. Preston, though, continue to linger incredibly dangerously above the drop zone. QPR 1, Stoke 1, almost the result I predicted it would be. I thought Stoke would come out 1-0 winners here, and they almost did, if it wasn't for a Ben Gibson own goal. I feel like I keep seeing Ben Gibson scoring goals here in recent weeks. I'm seeing him in the score sheet a lot more often than I ever remember, and it's at both ends. He seems to be scoring goals for Stoke and against them in equal measure at the moment. But QPR will be relieved to get a point from this, but quite honestly, looking at the number of shots they had, they're probably wondering how they didn't get more. 23 shots QPR had in this game, but it's telling that only 5 of them were on target. Again, the quality in the final third clearly not good enough for QPR, which has been the story of their season so far. So albeit they come away with something from this game, their incredibly blunt attack once again lets them down, and their winless run continues. 12 games winless at this point. They also missed a stinker of a penalty in this game as well, which sort of sums them up, you could say. But I think for Stoke, in QPR's current predicament, it's 2 points dropped from Stoke, you could say, but at the other end, QPR had that many shots on goal. They might be disappointed that they didn't come away with more than a point, but a draw is okay, but it doesn't really do much for their league position or Marty Cifuentes' position, so this isn't a point that really helps either team. West Brom 2, Norwich 2. I mean, this is hilarious in the fact that at the Hawthorns, there'd only been 3 goals up until this point all season. We had more goals in this game alone at the Hawthorns than we've had in all of the games previous, which I just find really, really funny. Both teams coming away from this with a point each, and I predicted a draw. Didn't expect this many goals. I thought it'd be 1 each, but yeah, a point, and it sort of sums up where both teams are at this moment in time. West Brom just keep drawing a lot. They've drew 7 of their last 8 league games, meaning it's only 1 win in 10 for West Brom now. But the points they're getting from these draws are still proving very, very important, because even though we've got a team here that have only won 1 in 10, they're still in the playoffs, which I guess is credit to West Brom's brilliant start, but it also just shows how, I guess, weak the league is this season and how the teams chasing just aren't consistent enough to overtake West Brom, and they're still 6th despite this winless run, but fair play to them for still picking up something. It was good to see the old fellows magic combination combining once again for their equaliser, and for Norwich I think they'll take this as well. They've stopped the rot, I guess. You know, they had lost 3 in a row and it was in danger of becoming 4 at a place as difficult as the Hawthorns. So I think they'll be delighted to come away with a point, but it still doesn't really claw them back any closer to the playoff places, and it means that there's no wins in 7 for Norwich now. So it's a weird result, this. It kind of helps both teams maintain where they are and stop what could have been a bit of a desperate slide, especially for Norwich, but the point doesn't really benefit either of them either. And finally, the 11th game of today's video, because Blackburn-Portsmouth was postponed, of course, it was Swansea 3, Leeds 4. What a game this was. I mean, Leeds were top, then they weren't, then they were, then they weren't, then they were again. Mental scenes down at the Swansea.com stadium. And again, another team who notoriously don't get many goals in their games, especially at home, like West Brom. Swansea ended up having 7 in this game, and I think they'll be desperately frustrated to have not come away with anything from this. You know, they led the game to 1-0, and I think they led it, was it 2-1 at one point as well? So to come away having led twice with nothing to show from it is desperate. But in the end, you know, it was poor defending from them for both of Leeds' late goals. Solomon in the 73rd minute, Nonto in the 91st. Both played onside by some very poor defending from Swansea. You know, I can't remember if it was Harry Darling for both, actually. I think it definitely was him for the winning goal, but they just had a defender who was just stepped out of the defensive line completely from the rest, playing on a single Leeds attacker, and Leeds just took advantage of that defensive line and were able to get in and be completely potent. And I think another reason why is that Swansea did equalise in the 90th minute, so to concede only a minute later will be a sucker blow for them. But this is what I mean about Leeds United, and this is why I fancy Leeds United. They have picked up more goals, or they've had more goals scored from their bench than pretty much any other team in the Championship this season. You know, when things just aren't going their way, they still have the weaponry and the armoury and the strength in depth to bring on a Wilfred Gnonto to change the game and pick up points when, you know, quite easily on another day they might have not only drew, they might have lost this game. So this is a testament to Leeds' quality, strength in depth, and another reason as to why I think they will just have enough and will just have more than the rest at the top of the Championship this season to go up as at least top 2. I have them as champions, of course. So yeah, another reason as to why I'm sort of high on Leeds, and I back them to just find a way this season even when they're not playing their best. And Swansea will be sickened by this. I think there are plenty of positives to take. You know, they were leading this Leeds team twice, created, you know, enough chances, and will be disappointed they didn't come away with anything. But again, will their season be defined by this defeat? Probably not. So to finish on the Championship League table then, and well, the 3 big winners are Leeds, Burnley and Boro, the only 3 teams to win in the top 8 this weekend. And well, you could include top 9 actually, with Blackburn not playing. In fact, if you then skip past Blackburn, they're the only 3 teams to have won in the top 15. Yeah, brilliant results for Leeds, Burnley and Boro, who very much closed the gap on Sunderland and Sheffield United. Leeds now top the league on goal difference, dropping Sunderland down to 2nd, Sheffield United down to 3rd. But of course, if it wasn't for their points deduction, they would be in the top 2, which is very much the top 2 we're all sort of expecting to see at the moment. And the playoff 4 we're also expecting to see is made up by Sunderland, Burnley, Boro and West Brom. So the league is starting to take shape in the manner that we believe it will. It's a case of which order are these top 6 going to be in, because that's the really exciting thing. You've got West Brom sort of hanging on, with the teams below them not taking advantage of them drawing the majority of them games. You've got Burnley, who are sort of just ticking along quietly but consistently. You've got Boro, who have suddenly caught fire, and Sheffield United, who are very, very consistent, and of course would have probably beaten Coventry on another day. So maybe Sunderland are the team who now just have to start looking over their shoulders anxiously, as there are teams who are starting to really rally and come towards them at a speed of knots. So yeah, the top 6 race, it looks incredibly exciting, and it will change massively from game to game, and it will change quickly over the course of the next few weeks as we go down into mid-table. Obviously, the chasing pack, Watford, Millwall, Blackburn, they'll still be eyeing just a run of results, which would still get them right in to the top 6. So the playoff race in behind West Brom is still well and truly on. Credit to Derby, by the way. Shout out to see them up in 11th as a newly promoted side. That's very, very impressive. You still have Norwich in the bottom half, which still is a little bit disappointing for them. Then as you go down, Luton and Coventry still not really in a great position given where they are in the squad they have, each of them with the players they have and the quality in both squads. So they'll still be disappointed to see them 16th and 17th. And then it gets a little bit tight, doesn't it? Because you've got Hull, who drop into the bottom 3, only a point behind the likes of Cardiff and Preston, only 2 points behind Coventry, Oxford and Plymouth. It's still very, very tight down there, as it is in the top 6. Pompey and QPR make up the rest of the bottom 3. Pompey, of course, not playing this week. And so, yeah, it's tight at the top, it's tight at the bottom, and we've got games coming so quickly. It's going to be exciting to see how this changes week to week. But we'll be back at some point, maybe Thursday, to round up the midweek games of Championship action. We're not going to have time to predict them, unfortunately, just down to the quick turnaround of games. But yeah, keep an eye on this table, because it is going to change every other day pretty much here in the Championship. It is such, as always, a thrilling, exciting, enthralling league. So we'll keep an eye on that. But until next time, guys, if you've enjoyed the video, do hit a like on it and subscribe for much more. We round up every round of Championship games, as always, and predict the ones we can as well. As I say, like the video to support the channel. Comment below your thoughts on your team's result this weekend. And until the next one, guys, do take care. I'll see you all next time.